So this is part 4 to my video, so please go back and watch the other 3 parts if you don't understand what I'm talking about. It'll make a lot more sense. But anyway, I left the last one off on Franklin the dog, talking about Philadelphia 76ers. Their new mascot's Franklin the dog. It even says that he was there for the first ever NBA Africa game played on 8/1. I mean, just interesting, because the game was played on 8/1. NBA Africa game adds up to 81, kind of like 8/1. Also interesting, 8/1 is the 213th day of the year. The first day of Lupercalia begins on 2/13. It goes to 2/13, 2/14, and 2/15, and almost like the years, right? I've talked about this before, how I think they've been coding this for the last 3 years or whatever, and this would be the last year. But who knows? I mean, that's just a theory that I have. It seems like it could be true. But interesting, Franklin the dog adds up to 144, a number associated with political assassinations. I also talked about the number 21 and how it ties into Philadelphia and the 333 days left on 2/1. Philadelphia is 333 years old this year. The Super Bowl was on 2/1 last year. It was the first ever Super Bowl that had Scientology ads or commercials. Scientology adds up to 144. And this is how they do things. Scientology, the small way, adds up to 54. Look at Scientology was founded 1954. It adds up to 54. Founded by this guy who's originally from Nebraska. It just reminds me a lot of the Malcolm X thing again. And I mean, so the reason it reminds me is because Malcolm X he joined the Nation of Islam when he was in prison. He got out in the year 52, was born in 25, the mirrors, also died on the 52nd day of the year. That all ties into this year as well. The 52nd prime is 239. It's the 239th year of the United States. But interesting, he died in the year 65 as well. The word Philadelphia adds up to 65. But, so he joined the Nation of Islam, and then he quit the Nation of Islam, and they said that the Nation of Islam are the people who actually murdered him. And I'm probably just going to make a whole nother video on him. I don't want to keep ranting about it. But interesting, he also went by the name Malik El-Shabazz, that adds up to 56. He was born in Omaha, Nebraska, that adds up to 55. L. Ron Hubbard was from Nebraska. This guy, he's originally from Nebraska. This is the leader of the Nation of Islam. His name added up to 56. And then there's even stuff like the Nation of Islam equals 58 and was founded 85 years ago. But it all ties into Scientology because in 2010, on 5/8 of all days for this to happen, the new leader, this guy, publicly announced his embrace for Dianetics and has actively encouraged Nation of Islam members to undergo auditing from the Church of Scientology. So, now he encourages them to do the Dianetics thing that the Church of Scientology does. I mean, just interesting, on 5/8, it was founded 85 years ago. It adds up to 58. Like I said, going to move on. I just only brought this up again because I've talked about how it seems like it's pointing to the assassination of Obama. You got this guy who joined the Nation of Islam, got assassinated with a number that connects to Philadelphia. And what does everybody that hates Obama, they call Obama the Muslim, the Islamic guy, right? So it's just a tie to that. We have ISIS in the news all the time. And then, if ISIS kills Obama, it's sort of like the Nation of Islam killing Malcolm X. And they love to do this type of repeat history where they take the same idea and then they just do it over and over and over throughout history, So it just really wouldn't put it past me if they have ISIS murder Obama just like the Nation of Islam supposedly murdered Malcolm X. And then who knows what that could lead to, It could lead to a lot of different things. War is one of them that sticks out. Anyway, back to Iverson here. So they, in their 58th season of being in the NBA, the 76ers traded away Iverson. And I mean, they were supposed to be good in their 56th season. This was their 56th season. They picked up Andre Iguodala and also Chris Webber. What just sticks out to me, Andre Iguodala this year was the reason that the Golden State Warriors, who used to be from Philadelphia, beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. And because when he came in and started guarding LeBron, that's when they started doing good. LeBron James was number 23. Andre Iguodala was number 9. It was the 923 reference, the Philadelphia Trainwreck reference, the Pope Francis reference. See the previous videos. But Andre Iguodala and Chris Webber, they both add up to 58, just like Los Angeles Lakers. Remember, they lost to the Los Angeles Lakers in 2001 when Iverson was the MVP. And then he was also the MVP of the All-Star game that year. The only other time he was the MVP of the All-Star game was in this season, 2004-2005. And just interesting, the All-Star game was in Denver, which he got traded to. And the one before that he won in 2001, it was in Washington, D.C., where he went to college. Just seems kind of weird, I guess. He went Washington, D.C., wins the MVP, and then he wins it in Denver, and then he gets traded to Denver. Interesting, the next season, the NBA All-Star Game, Kobe Bryant won the MVP, the Philadelphia native, and it was in Philadelphia. So then, this was kind of the downfall of Allen Iverson. I mean, the Nuggets he did all right at, but then he ended up getting traded to the Pistons, and then to the Grizzlies, and he barely played any, and whatnot, so kind of like the beginning of the end for Allen Iverson. And basically the reason that he left the NBA, he said, was because he couldn't handle coming off the bench. I mean, come on, off the bench adds up to 56. His whole career, they made him out to be a thug. A thug. Thug equals 56. David Stern even had to change the dress code, supposedly because of Allen Iverson. Dress code equals 56. Also, so then he makes his comeback again in 2009, or at the end of 2009, to the Philadelphia 76ers. Interesting, Obama became the president in 2009, but also they signed him basically because Lou Williams had suffered a broken jaw and he was going to miss at least 30 games. But Lou Williams, last year was the 6th man of the year. I mean, I think they're doing stuff with the sixes, like Philadelphia 76ers, the 6th man. They've been killing all these people off, or at least trying to. Lamar Odom didn't die. But I mean, he plays for the Los Angeles Lakers now, even born on the same day as Philadelphia's anniversary or whatever. This year they're 333 years old. Also, just kind of interesting, this is the day Obama became the president. This is the day that Iverson went back to Philadelphia. It's a span of 321 days. But his last day, he ended up quitting again on March 2nd of 2010. I mean, if you just write out March 2nd, it's literally 3-2 of 2010. Kind of like 3-2-1. Doesn't have to mean much. Just thought about that. So then, he doesn't go back to the NBA, but he goes and plays in Turkey. Which, I mean, if they're coding him so much for Philadelphia and for this year, or like the 239th year of the United States, which would actually last until July 4th or August 2nd, depending on how you look at it, it's just kind of interesting that he would end his career playing in Turkey, and then you just had, right before Thanksgiving, you had Turkey shoot down the Russian plane, or the Russian jet, or whatever. I mean, come on, just think about the programming that they do to you on that. Turkey shoots down the plane, and right before Thanksgiving, I mean, give me a break. It's such a joke. And I mean, it's so coded, I honestly would not doubt if that is the only reason why he went to Turkey. I mean, he barely even played there. So like I said, who knows? But, then his official retirement he announced it on October 30th, 2013. And they retired his jersey on March 1st, 2014. Interesting. It's the 60th day of the year. Remember, 76ers equals 60. Moses Malone died at the age of 60. Daryl Dawkins adds up to 60. Flip Saunders died at the age of 60. It's all tied in there. But one last thing, I guess, it makes me wonder is like what they're doing with Jahlil Okafor then. Iverson was known to have all these legal troubles and problems and whatnot. And now they got Jahlil Okafor, who's been in trouble like a bunch of times this year already. And it's just interesting because I've noticed a lot of bad things with the number 55, and Jahlil Okafor adds up to 55. You know, he also got in trouble for, being drunk on the Franklin Bridge or whatever. We talked about that a whole bunch. I mean, they foreshadowed a lot of bridge references. Like, I thought Golden Gate Bridge for a long time, but then it just seemed like the coding was to Philadelphia so much, so I made a lot of videos about the Benjamin Franklin Bridge. Just really makes me wonder what the ultimate plan is. I mean, these people are crazy. They code everything by these numbers. I mean, it's just craziness. That's all I can say. But they do it, you know? And one last thing I want to mention about Philadelphia. So, before the Lakers played the Timberwolves this year, right after Flip Saunders had died, you know, Flip Saunders was born on 2/23, announced his cancer on the 223rd day of the year. The Lakers were owning that game, then all of a sudden just started doing terrible, and they ended up losing, and the score added up to 223. The Synagogue of Satan adds up to 223. The word Masonic adds up to 223. Friday the 13th adds up to 223. Just like the Paris attacks that happened on Friday the 13th. And the Skull and Bones members, their favorite number is 322, the mirror of 223. But before that game, they had Jalen Rose and Doug Collins. And Doug Collins gave a little speech here, and he said that the NBA is a fraternity.
Was a friend of all of ours. We go way back. Yeah. But wasn't somehow his team now has to try to focus on basketball.
Well, you know, the NBA, and Jay always thought it's a fraternity. It's a big brotherhood. And once you're part of it, you're always a part of it. And, you know, coaches, we're different creatures. We pour our...
So, I mean, he's telling you that the NBA is a fraternity, a brotherhood. It is. They do all this by the numbers. I mean, the NBA is owned by Zionist Jews. I mean, come on. It's so ridiculous. I mean, even remember Taylor Swift giving her speech about Kanye West this year? And she said she was trying to make it sound like she was talking about Kanye was into arts and crafts, but she pauses and she said, he's spent many years studying the craft. And then she says something else after that, after she pauses. Because they're telling you that he's a Freemason. And it just seems like nobody catches on. But the interesting thing about Doug Collins is that, for one, he is the only other first overall draft pick to go to the 76ers. So it's Patrick Ewing, Allen Iverson, and Doug Collins. Also interesting, it says Collins was chosen to represent the United States at the 1972 Summer Olympics in Munich. While those games are mainly remembered for the terrorist attack that left 11 Israeli athletes dead, there was also the controversial gold medal game between the United States and Soviet Union, in which Collins played a key part. So interesting, I've talked about the Turkey, Soviet Union, United States, who knows, but I mean, just read it here. After Collins hit 2 free throws near the end of the final game, the United States had a 50-49 lead. However, confusion over a timeout called and subsequent issues with the game clock led the game's officials to restart the game's final 3 seconds 2 times, right? And so they had to restart the game's final 3 seconds 2 times, the 33 reference. I mean, come on now. And then says the Soviets made a layup to take the lead then, and it gave the U.S. its first ever Olympic loss by a 51-50 margin. Just interesting, 51 plus 50 is 101. Philadelphia adds up to 101. And then it says after that game he went on to be drafted to the 76ers or whatever. And he even played on the team in the 76-77 season that when they played the Portland Trailblazers in the NBA Finals. So whatever, I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, just a lot of interesting things. Allen Iverson surrounded by the number 56. 56 is just a super big number. It seems like coded into a lot of these false flag events or hoaxes or whatever they are. You know, significant events nonetheless. And then with them foreshadowing Philadelphia so much, it just really makes me wonder what's going to happen. So hopefully nothing, but Who knows? So have a good night.